Firstly, thank you for having us as a data and evidence partner at the Pharma Tech event. I think when we talk about evidence, right, what we mean is how best to convert the insights that come in a clinical trial and the data that comes into publishable insights, right? So what we realized, a couple of things, traditional CRO model is, we have to provide a solution, we conduct a clinical trial, we, do everything as part of a trial, do the CSR and delivery, it's transactional, right? But what we realized, a couple of things, is that evidence now is like sort of the buzz in the market, right? And I'll give you a couple of things that I mean by why it's the buzz in the market, right? One thing we realize, evidence is not just a one-off event. It's kind of a continuum event, right? Evidence keeps transforming, it keeps changing, it keeps developing, right? But it's important to be opportunistic on the evidence of that moment and actually convert that into insights in the, the public market, right? Number two, we realize is that evidence is not a one-size-fits-all strategy. And I'll give you why, right? So when we came up with the full evidence strategy at SIRO Cleantech, it's not that it was just from our experience. We actually did a lot of market research with various different facets of who evidence matters for, right? You look at HCPs, for example, right? HCPs require evidence to have that confidence to prescribe certain medications, right? You look at the payers. They have a lot of queries about cost effectiveness, which requires, again, evidence to best justify the cost effectiveness. You have a third facet of patients, right? Now, patients are something that earlier were, sort of, you're doing something for the patients at the end, but now with social media, with, various forums, with all of that, there's a lot more demand of patients to have information and lay information so they understand better effectiveness of what they're sort of doing. And of course, we had a lot of discussions with regulators, with hospital systems to actually understand what they would require in terms of evidence, right? So those were the couple of things that why evidence matters. It's not that one evidence given for an HCP is relevant for a patient. So what we provide at SIRO as an evidence partner is the overall evidence plan that caters to all these markets. And the last thing we realize when it comes to evidence is that evidence keeps transforming over months, right? When we spoke to a lot of sponsor companies, if you have evidence on day 0, in 6 months, it will be completely different market perception. Say there's a couple of adverse events, say there are many different things. The complete how you use your data as part of clinical trials effectively continually changes. So it's about how quick you can provide that evidence, because evidence is not for the next 5 years remaining the same. It continues to transition. So these were a couple of reasons why we realized that the traditional CRO model, if we continue to work over there, we're more, just vendors. I think with evidence, we become partners, right? So that's the entire strategic transformation that we're doing. And we're already in talks with, a lot of companies and working on how best to use their evidence and create, publishable insights, right? Where currently they're generating maybe 1 or 2 publications for various journals. We're actually providing plans of, 8, 10, 12, how best to use all the data. And as I had said earlier, the data to go exactly into those 5 categories of how best to target your HCPs, your payers, your patients, etc. So that's the entire strategic transformation that we're, making at SIRO Cleantech. So of course, at SIRO Cleantech, which is, part of the entire SIRO Group, today we have around, 300 plus members in the group and 100 plus just dedicated towards, SIRO Cleantech. And I think what we're looking to do is not only grow as earlier, the traditional CRO services, but we also want to augment AI in our offerings. So before I talk about what we're doing at the SIRO Group, I just want to give a little bit insight that in a few months ago, SIRO Cleantech actually acquired a AI company in the market, which was focused more on digital pathology, histopathology, etc. And they had a lot of AI technologies around that. What we realized is that to get various products from the market on the AI side and integrate it is very difficult and creates a lot of liabilities in terms of misuse of data, all of that. So we want to bring everything in-house, develop it, keep it secure, validated on our servers, etc. So we actually acquired a company and rebranded it as SIRO AI. And I'm giving that sort of a background because that is where we're trying to develop as a completely, while we continue to offer our clinical trials, we will also augment with AI. So we want to be a leading player and the quickest mover in this space. So moving more to SIRO, I think what we've realized is that we've divided our growth into, 4 pillars, 4 different service offerings. Service offering, pillar 1 and 2 is the tradition, your regular development trials and your post-marketing, your post-approval sort of trial. So that's something we've been, doing day in, day out. We've enhanced it with certain offerings like, your CSR mining with a lot of AI capabilities in that space, and that's more the traditional phase 1 to phase 4. We recruit patients, conduct the trials, data analysis to the CSR, and from the CSR we also offer people a lot of how best we can use the data we've generated for you into publishable insights. When I look at pillar 3 and 4, that's of more, it's developed over the last few years. So pillar 3 is real world evidence. I think over there what we're really strongly trying to build is your real world studies, in your real world setting, and we cater there more to medical affairs and market access teams. So that's where we actually, pharma companies are very interested in what's happening to the product in the market, what's working, what's not, what are people saying, right? So that's an entire vertical that we've created. We continue to do a lot of real world evidence studies on the health economic side. And last pillar, which is, the most interesting, is what we sort of term as patient voice intelligence. So I think patient perspective is something that now is, while it was always important, now it's prominent and non-negotiable, right? So I think we've actually developed tools in-house that actually helps take into account patient perspective on your various forums, your social media platforms, all of that stuff, integrates comments, analyzes comments, and gives suggestions based on what are the trends and how best to cater to issues that the patients are facing and how best to deal with it, whether it's through a lay summary, it's through posters, it's through creating publications, etc. And in this, the tool is, again, this entire environment is built again by SIRO AI, and we also build disease registries as part of the AI offering that's actually helping to create entire patient perspectives, right? And I'll give you a real life example of this, right? What we recently did is a company in the IVF space came to us saying that they really want to do something large in terms of understanding patient perspective in this space. So our system actually analyzed over 100,000 comments in public domain. It's streamlined it into 20,000 very, relevant comments. And from that, we actually created an entire, sort of a patient intelligence study. And actually, as recently as a couple of weeks ago, ISPOR has accepted that. And we're actually going to present that towards the end of the year. So based on our understanding, it's one of the largest ever patient intelligence sort of, pool that anyone's taken, with 22,000 plus comments into place. So I think the reason I'm saying that is that there's proof of the pudding as to what we want to do. We can do it at a very large scale. And I think having been on the healthcare side for the last 50 years, we realize that one is there's an opportunistic idea, but how best to execute. And we believe SIRO Cleantech today is in the best position to do both.